This is Lightning Power Lunch, presented by Reef Rum on the Lightning Audio Network with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli.
Listen, it's early into the season. Sometimes things don't go your way. Maybe we started behind the 8 ball, but you tell me we're not going to lose 2 games the entire season, I would have called you crazy. So that's all it is right now. It's not a big deal. We're trying to find our game just like everyone else is around the league. And when things start to ramp up, I know we'll be the team that is tough to beat.
Yeah, I think we're all aligned there. You know, we had that conversation, what was it, yesterday? Sometimes the beginning of the year and the end of the year get the most focus because everything's new at the beginning, and the best time of the year is coming up towards the end, and the perception is play well heading in, and somehow that momentum will carry into games, and so it's natural. I think the Lightning are in an okay spot. You know, let's not overanalyze things, and hopefully they continue to move in that positive direction tonight against Detroit. It's going to be a stiff challenge, and we'll see how that plays out. Of course, this is Power Lunch on Lightning Radio. I'm Greg Linnelli, along with Dave Mishkin, the radio voice of the Lightning. Steve Verstink is our producer. Ben Pierce, Lightning beat reporters, coming up at 12:15. That'll be fun. And we'll get to your questions and comments. And Brandon Hagel's an interesting guy because I feel like he hasn't made the impact offensively that we're used to. Again, it's early, so that's why it's sticking out. But it's nice to have that in the bag a little bit too, partner, knowing that Brandon Hagel could go on a heater, so to speak, and he could very well have one of those weeks where he's averaging a point per game and getting a breakaway every game, which it seemed like he did last year, especially shorthanded.
Yeah, and I actually think he's been part of a very good penalty kill so far this year. So, 14 out of 16 they've killed off. Now, he's taken a few penalties, so he has missed those kills. But I want to say in the 2 road games earlier in the week, I don't remember him taking a penalty. So I think he was out for a lot of those penalty kills, and he and Cirelli definitely have terrific chemistry, whether they're playing 5-on-5 or shorthanded. I just think that I fall back on playoff pace. So the Lightning have 3 points through 4 games. Ideally, they can get to 12 after 10. And if you can do that, history has told us, it really doesn't matter as much what everyone else is doing, right? There are going to be some teams that find ways to get points early in the year. Canadians are a great example of that. They've scored in their last 2 games 2 late goals. One was with 20 seconds left last night. So they snatched a regulation loss away, or maybe they didn't. they were looking at a regulation loss, and they pushed that away, and they ended up winning in overtime. So that's a 4-point swing for them. They easily, certainly last night, and even the other one, I think they were down by a goal with maybe 2.5 minutes left. Those games, you don't always get the game tied. They did it twice, and they got rewarded with an overtime win. Mm-hmm. These things tend to even themselves out, but when you're banking those points early, you feel pretty good about things. So they have jumped out pretty quickly. They lost their first game. They won the next 4. Detroit lost the first game to Montreal. Detroit's won the last 3. Quality wins, 2 against Toronto, 1 against Florida. So they've gotten off to a good start. But, I mean, if you're following the Lightning, you can't worry about the fact that Montreal has 8 points and Detroit has 6 points. Like, the Lightning just have to take care of their own business. And that's why you can drive yourself crazy, I think, trying to track what everyone else is doing and worrying about where you are relative to them. Now, I have talked about falling behind early. If you are way off that 12 and 10 metric, you're going to have to get back to it. So I think it would behoove the Lightning to finish this road trip well tonight against Detroit, tomorrow against Columbus. And then they have really a steady diet of home games the rest of the month, all against the West, as we talked about. You figure the Lightning are going to play better at home than what they showed in the first 2 games. So, look, I think the rest of the month does set up for them well to get points. I don't know if they're going to get to 12 and 10. You lose the first 2 in regulation. You only get 1 win in the first 4. You're making it harder on yourself. But it certainly is doable. Now, this Detroit team, they are an interesting team. I think Todd McClellan is a very good coach. He came in basically halfway through the year last year for Detroit when they fired Derek Lalonde. They missed the playoffs. It was another year where they were kind of in the running, but they were more in the outside, trying to get into the top 8, basically, or the top 4 in the Atlantic, and the top 5 got into the playoffs in the Atlantic last year, but they didn't make it, and they dropped off. I look at their roster, Greg, and I'm like, this team should be better. When you look at their roster, they really should be a playoff team. You've got DeBrincat, who scored almost 40 goals last year. You've got a couple of really good young players, still young, but they've been in the league a few years, in Lucas Raymond and Mo Sider. Dylan Larkin may not be, the level of some other offensively talented captains around the league, let's say like Austin Matthews, but Dylan Larkin has been a very reliable point producer for this team and is usually one of their top 2 or 3 point guys. And they have a bunch of high picks. 2 more of them have just joined the team this year. They're both Scandinavian. They both have hyphenated last names. Detroit leads the NHL in hyphenated last names, by the way, because they also added Jacob Bernard Docker, who was with Ottawa, and then he was involved in that Dylan Cousins, Josh Norris deal. He finished in Buffalo last year, but he signed with Detroit as a free agent. But the draft picks, 2 first-rounders. They have Axel Sandin Pellikka, who is Swedish. He was their first-round pick in 2023, 17th overall. And then they have Michael Brandsegg Nygaard, who is Norwegian, like Emil Lilleberg. He was taken in the first round in 2024. They're both on the team this year, and they both played on the same Swedish hockey league team last year, Skellefteå. And then they joined Grand Rapids at the end of last year. They're both young. They're both playing. So I'm looking at this team, and Kane is still producing. So it's just curious that they have struggled as much as they have. Where they have not struggled under McClellan, and even before McClellan took over, is on the power play. Check this out, Greg. Last year, the Detroit Red Wings finished the regular season with a power play percentage of 27%. That is very, very good.
Right.
That is an excellent power play percentage. That is the highest power play percentage in the history of the Detroit Red Wings. That's the part that shocked me, because in the high-flying days of the 80s and early 90s, and the Wings were getting very, very good in the early 90s before the quote-unquote dead puck era. You mean to tell me when they had Fedorov and Yzerman and, the Russian 5 and all that, their power play percentage was worse than what the Red Wings of last year did? The Red Wings that missed the playoffs last year? But we saw it when the Lightning played the Red Wings. Their power play was the strongest part of their game.
Yeah.
Even when the Lightning killed a penalty, it was a struggle, and they required phenomenal goaltending in a lot of games to get through penalty kills. Also, the Lightning, I feel, against Detroit last year got into a lot of penalty trouble. So, look, I think that this team should be an up-and-coming team. We'll see how it plays out. I'm sure they're thrilled about starting 3-1. They're thrilled about beating the Leafs twice and the Panthers once. But it's probably going to come down to what they keep out of their own net, because they've shown that they can score.
Yeah.
Cam Talbot has won the last 3, played the last 3. They got John Gibson in a trade during the offseason. Pittsburgh guy, as you have mentioned. He is younger. He is like 6 years younger than Talbot. I didn't realize he was that much younger than Talbot.
Talbot's been in the league for a while.
But so is Gibson. That's the thing. I would have guessed both of them were kind of in their mid to late 30s.
Gibson's been a really good goaltender.
Gibson has been a really good
maybe
goaltender.
A couple,
So he played in the opener. I think he is probably projected to be the guy, but he had a bad first game. They lost to Montreal 5-1. Yeah. I think they only gave up 17 shots, too. So it was a rough game for Gibson. Talbot's had the net ever since. We'll see who gets the start tonight for Detroit. But I think that they understand they need to be better defensively, which is what I talk about until I'm blue in the face on the show. We'll see how the Lightning do tonight. I still maintain if the Lightning can defend, and it's not always the easiest thing to do against this Red Wings team, especially here in Detroit, where the Lightning have, even when they've won recently, I feel like they've given up a lot of goals. They're going to put themselves in a position to get points out of this game tonight.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. there was an article, I believe it was in The Athletic. One of the few times I've seen one of these circulate over the last couple of years about Steve Yzerman and not being able to get it done in Detroit from the perspective of making the playoffs and being an impactful franchise. And you compare that to what he did with the Lightning, and some would say, is it comparable? Is it not? I think every situation's probably different, but there maybe are some similarities. Certainly Detroit was hoping he would be able to, replicate what he did in Tampa for Detroit. That just hasn't happened. A lot of people, maybe up until recently, have felt like the Red Wings don't have superstars. They've got really good players, but they lack the superstars. I think you and I would probably say they've got some guys who are knocking on that door, maybe, potentially.
If your power play is coming in at 27%, you do have some talented offensive players. DeBrincat can really shoot. Raymond can really shoot. Yeah. Larkin's a very good playmaker. And their power play is a handful. And if their power play is a handful, that means their top 6 offensively is a handful.
I don't know, though, Dave, if I would go, and I'm not saying you are, but if we're judging by the power play to signal, you've got the stars of the stars, or how somehow that's going to translate into game-changing players. I don't know if I think they've got really good players, and I think you can have a good power play with really good players.
Yeah.
It hasn't translated to whatever they need. That could be defending, it could be goaltending. I mean, look, if that was the case, the Pittsburgh Penguins last year would have been, the best power play in the planet, because they had Hall of Famers littered on that unit, and they couldn't put the puck in the ocean. That's how bad they were. What I'm saying to you is there is a belief that one of the reasons they have not been able to elevate, and I don't know if I agree with it, I'm simply bringing it to our attention, is that they don't have the dynamic players. Look at the Tampa Bay Lightning. Are the stars comparable if you took the Red Wings' top 3 and the Lightning's top 3, if everybody was clicking on all cylinders? Certainly not at the goaltender position. I'd argue Dylan Larkin's been a good player to very good player in this league. I don't think he's anywhere close. I don't think he's anywhere close to a Braden Point or a Nikita Kucherov. Raymond, maybe, but I've looked at Raymond. I think he's really good. I don't know if I think he's gonna take over a game or a shift. And maybe that's not fair, but maybe it is, considering where he was drafted. So I think that's been the question a little bit with Detroit. They're kind of in this middle where they've got a good roster, maybe not a great roster, and you're just kind of stuck in mediocrity. And we've always said, what's the quickest way to rebuild? Well, if you are going to draft in the top 5 and the top 7, you got to get some superstars. You have to hit. And maybe
I think
haven't.
They feel that they did that with Seider and Raymond. They are both very, very good players.
I would agree.
You know who else is on their team? I really like this guy, number 77, Simon Edvinsson. I think he was also a first-round pick.
You like him?
I do. Yeah, he's on their second pair. It's like they're trying to build their team up. And if you can start stacking lines and stacking deep here where you're not having much of a drop-off, that's really going to help you. I'm just looking up Edvinsson to see where he was drafted. I mean, Marco Kasper, he scored an overtime winner against the Lightning last year. He's centering a line with DeBrincat. Yeah. He's their second-line center. He's an 8th overall pick. I think they're pretty high on him.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Edvinsson was a first-round pick. He was 6th overall. So,
That's
you're talking about some pick. So between Kasper, Edvinsson, Raymond, and Seider, you've got 4 players taken in the top 10.
You got it. Those 2 of them have to turn out to be superstars, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, and that maybe that's not fair to look because you're just casually throwing that number out there, and superstars are really hard to come by.
Right.
But if you're going to draft again in the top 8 for an extended period of time, theoretically you should be getting that type of player. Or at least the odds are better with you than they would be at somebody drafting at 25. I'm stating the obvious, but sometimes that needs to be stated. And so for Detroit, again, I'll go back to my initial point. It feels like they have been stuck in kind of the middle. And I don't know if they've got the personnel to move in to this top 8 in the East to have this type of conversation you and I are having when I compare them to the Lightning, a team who has been in the top 8 for a number of years. Do you see the same ingredients? And I would just answer that question and say no, I don't. And that's a hard truth. Maybe I'm off.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not. I don't know. But Ben Pierce, I know he's been listening.
Yeah.
He may agree. I think he'd be a smart man if he did. But he has his own opinions. He has his own show, and he's on with us throughout. Do I need to bring him in? Yeah, look, I'm going to add him to the stage. Ooh, can I do that? Look at that.
So you have been given control of the rudder, and you are sailing into the deep blue sea. How do you like that?
Oh, man. How about
combining into the blue.
Ben Pierce.
We are bringing Ben into the blue.
Who would have thought that?
Check that out.
Cheese curds and all.
Yeah. You look very
the
comfortable
cheese
in that studio. I have done one Power Lunch show this year in the studio, and we kind of revamped some things. And I gave
Wasn't that the
Steve
one you
some
and I?
input.
Didn't we do together?
Yeah.
Didn't we do a show together?
It was
in
before
there?
one of the home games.
Yeah,
it was
I think
before the opener, I think.
That's right. I think
I did the show from the studio.
Yeah,
You probably can't tell, but they upgraded the chairs in here this year. They're also blue, so somebody was on their stuff there. But the great new comfy chairs in here this year. So great job, Steve. There, good work.
I think Into the Blue just is writing all of the scripts for like we need blue chairs. We need a blue background. So Ben, one of the things that you do that fans may not know, in addition to writing, is you do the game notes, which, if you have access to the media site, you can read them, but people in the media read them. And you are really like dialed into what's happening with the Lightning, which is kind of the job of the person who does that. But I'm just wondering, like, for your own benefit, either as a writer or just because you like to know, do you pay attention to the opponent when you're kind of compiling the game notes beyond like Kucherov has X number of points against Detroit, which I know you include in there?
Well, 100%, because a lot of times it kind of kicks up story ideas in my mind. Like, for one thing, for me, we've talked, I think, in the past on this show, like, I grew up a big Edmonton Oilers fan. So, like, for me, I honestly kind of forgot Cam Talbot was in the NHL. But I remember when he was having those crazy years in the NHL with the Oilers. They got him from the Rangers, and he was this backup goalie, and could he handle a starting job? And so seeing the year that he's put together already for Detroit's pretty impressive. Like, his numbers this year are incredible. So it's good to see that he's still good. I hope selfishly that those numbers don't look that great tonight if he's in net. But like, you definitely look at the other teams. I'll admit that I find myself in the weeds a little bit more on the Lightning side because I'm trying to find ways to make sure you guys have new information every game. But definitely more in tune than probably the average person on the numbers side of it. I'll admit my parents and my report card will definitely attest. The math was never my strong suit. That's why I do words for a living. Words are definitely my strong suit, not numbers. But this is probably the most fun I've had with math and numbers in a long time.
Well, do you have any interesting numbers we should be keeping an eye on tonight? I know a couple of players closing in on a milestone, right, that we want to maybe keep our eye on.
Well, I tell you what, we're getting close. Cooch obviously at 3 away from 1,000. I think that's the big one. Hetty also 3 now away from 800 points, and we're working on the Kucherov one is really impressive because he's gonna be one of the fastest to do it in NHL history, and 17th right now is where he's at on pace for in NHL history. He'd be the 17th fastest player to hit 1,000 points, which at first blush you hear 17th and you're like, okay, it's not top 5, it's not top 10, so what? That's fast. Like, it's coming up on 806, 807, I believe. If he does it tonight, that is insanely fast. When you look at the other guys he's up there, it's all Hall of Famers, and basically Connor McDavid is the only guy that's still active. That isn't going to be a lock for the Hall of Fame, and obviously McDavid's probably going to get there. But it's crazy when you look at the numbers that Cooch has all the time. And like, he's played 50 career games against the Red Wings. He's a point per game player. And like, even Victor Hedman's got over 40 points against the Red Wings in 40 some games. Like, you look at like those little numbers that just over time, I think that's the part that always impresses me the most is when I look at like career scoring. You see a guy like Victor Hedman who's playing an Atlantic Division opponent, and he's a point per game player, and he's also playing 26, 30 minutes a night all these years playing defense. It's crazy. And Hags had a really good year last year too, 6 points against the Red Wings in 4 games. So it's always those little things that I think we forget over the course of a long season, but there's plenty of little notes and numbers to pull out. And I think especially for Hags, like I said, he had 6 points against the Red Wings last year. Obviously a guy that has talked about wanting to get going offensively a little bit, and it'd be great to see him do that tonight.
Well, Ben, it has been a small sample size so far, 4 games, but what are your takeaways to this point?
Well, the biggest thing for me is I've loved the depth scoring, right? Like, if you look at the 5-on-5 scoring for the Lightning, a lot of it has come from the bottom 6. And I think that top 6 group has been pretty good on the power play. But for the most part, when you're getting goals from guys like Oliver Bjorkstrand and Yanni Gord and these different guys further down the lineup, and we talked on Into the Blue last week, like that assist by Pontus Holmberg the other night, the spinorama, beautiful, like that was insane. Like those are top 6 level plays. And I think for fans that maybe at the initial start of the year were panicking over 0-2, oh my God, here we go, what's happening? You got to love that you're getting production further down the lineup, because I'm telling you right now, Nikita Kucherov, Jake Gensel, Braden Point, you're not keeping those guys off the score sheet at 5-on-5 for the entire year. You're just not. Those are world-class players that are going to score at 5-on-5. And if they can continue to get the production that they have to this point from the bottom 6 at 5-on-5, and then get the usual production they do from the top 6, look out, man, because the offense could be pretty incredible if we keep getting what we're getting from the bottom 6. And unfortunately, the injuries that we've seen to start the year is unfortunate, but like, you add Nick Paul back into the mix at some point, and that bottom 6 could be even more dangerous. But to me, that's been the biggest thing, is the depth offensively has been fantastic so far this year.
Yeah, and the big boys, we were talking about this at the beginning, have had moments, but they haven't had one of those really heaters, so to speak, where they just dominate for a month, which is encouraging, Ben, because I think you don't want to be peaking early.
Right.
And that's going to come. And if you have to have some of your depth players fill in here and there offensively until everybody is humming, and you're still able to munch points, that's a big deal, isn't it?
Well, and can I just say too, like, how spoiled are we as employees and as Lightning fans that you're talking about the top guys, quote unquote, not producing, and like, Gensel and Point have 5 points in 4 games, and Cooch has 3-4 points in 4. Like, it's not like they've got 0 or 1 point. It's just a matter of the 5-on-5 scoring, right? Like, they're still putting up points. It's just a matter of, is it coming on the power play versus 5-on-5, and when are those points coming? I think this group is still kind of figuring out, where do we go from here? I think the 0-2 start was disappointing. I don't think anybody saw that coming. But at the same time, like, I do think it can be a good thing, because it kind of forces the group to rally together and say, okay, I don't think anybody in this room expected us to start 0-2. Now we've really got to go. And Hag said yesterday when we talked to in the locker room, he's like, listen, if you'd have told me at the start of the year that we were going to go 80-2, I'd have been pretty happy with it, right? Like, everybody knew we were going to lose 2 games at some point this season, right? Did we want to lose the first 2? No. But we knew at some point this year we were going to lose 2 games, and there's no panic. It's still early in the year. It's just a matter of just really building on the winning habits. And I think especially the last 2 games, we saw much better efforts overall than we did in those first 2 games. And I think that's the thing, is you're starting to see more Lightning hockey, especially in the last 2 games.
Well, in your capacity as beat writer, you get to write feature stories on different players, and you've produced a number already. I guess it's like freshly, sodded grass at the beginning of the year, right? Because you have these new players coming in. You're like, what's his? Well, and even for you, what's his story? What's his story? What's his story? Yeah. Has there been a story that you really enjoyed writing so far this year?
I got to be honest, man. Curtis Douglas, like, how do you not love that, right? Like, the 25-year-old guy who thinks he's going back to the AHL. He's on his way. He's literally on his drive back to the minors for his 4th year of the American Hockey League. Stops at a coffee chain and is in line to get his coffee, and gets a call saying, "Hey, by the way, bud, you're going to the NHL." Like, it almost sounds like the start to a book or a movie, right, Mish? You might want to get on that one. But like, It really is. It's just a great story for him. And I think even when we talked to him before that season opener, you can tell how much it means to him to be here in the NHL. And obviously the great debut with the fight, 9 seconds in, I think it was. He's obviously already got plenty of fans and tied for the biggest player in NHL history. So, it's a role I think that this team was looking for clearly. And he's excited to be here, and such a nice guy too. He's got to be the nicest guy at 6'9" in the world, I would think. I haven't met very many people that are 6'9", but he's always so kind and so just happy to be here. And I think Curtis Douglas for sure is probably number one right now, just because 2 weeks ago this guy was getting ready for a different lifestyle, and all of a sudden he's in the whirlwind of adapting to the NHL for the first time at 25, and he's definitely not taking it for granted. So that's been a really fun one.
Did they ever find his car?
I have not had an update on the car
Somebody's
yet.
Somebody's got to ask him.
Yeah, we're working on that. They're on the road right now, but something tells me Gabby Shirley is going to be asking about the car every day here.
You got to. I wanted to ask you, it's been a hot topic at the beginning of the year. It's sticking out like a sore thumb. I think so because it's early in the season. Mish and I were dedicating a good portion of the show yesterday to the newness of the season. Oftentimes piques people's interest more, and the end of the year also because you're getting into the playoffs. But face-offs gonna be something we're watching all year long because we talk about Glendening and not being here, and we know how big he was from that perspective. He's gone, of course.
Yep.
Is this going to be something where you're looking internally for those guys to improve, but is this on our radar from now until, trade deadline to see, look, if we can't get up over 45, 46%, we may have to do something here.
Well, for sure. Faceoffs are a big part of it. And Anthony Cirelli mentioned the other night after the team was around 30%, and you mentioned those crazy game notes. One of the things that I dug up, it was the second worst face-off percentage in the last 5 seasons in any game. So you take that 82 times 5. That's a lot of games, right? It was pretty bad. And the only other game, it was like 28%. So you look at that, and you can't, if you don't win face-offs, you don't have the puck, right? Every offensive play, every goal starts with having the puck. And I know it sounds very basic, and people have different opinions on how important is a face-off, but at the very end of even that game with the horrendous face-off percentage, Anthony Cirelli wins a face-off with about 8 seconds left to seal that win. And just that one face-off shows that you can win a game, you can lock down a game with one big face-off win. And I do think that it's something that they want to improve on. I mean, you heard the clip from Cirelli post-game. He was ticked off. He was mad about how the faceoffs are going that game, and he really blamed himself for it. And he had a good response the other night, was up over 53%. And it's important for this group. And another guy, we talked about Curtis Douglas, but Jack Finley is another guy knocking on the door. And when I talked to him in the preseason, he mentioned faceoffs, that's an area that he really prides himself on. And little fun fact for you, no player this preseason for the Lightning took more faceoffs than Jack Finley. They really wanted to see what he could do in the faceoff circle. And he took, I believe it was over 60 faceoffs in those 6 preseason games he played. So, there might be an opportunity for a guy like Jack Finley to earn more NHL games if he can prove that he can win those faceoffs. So you look at a guy like Luke Glendening, who basically made his entire NHL career off, you're not beating me in this one thing. And he's made an incredible career out of that. So maybe for a guy like Finner, it's his way to get more minutes, more NHL games, or maybe we get to the deadline and they have to look externally. But this group, I know, believes a lot in Anthony Cirelli, and Coop has said as much, that they really like Anthony Cirelli in the faceoff circle. And even last year's season numbers were pretty good in the dot. But it's definitely going to be a focus, especially early in the year, to see, do we have the guys here that are going to win faceoffs? And if not, does that development come from within or maybe externally? So it's definitely something to monitor.
Well, if we dig in a little further, Ben, and this is a topic we've discussed on the show, not only have the Lightning struggled as a team on faceoffs, they've really struggled in the defensive zone, and especially on penalty kill faceoffs, which when you consider they're 14 out of 16 on the penalty kill, that makes that stat even more remarkable. But, I mean, according to the game sheets, In the last 2 games, the Lightning have had 8 penalty kills. They won a total of 2 shorthanded faceoffs, and one of those was the Cirelli one that you mentioned at the end of the Boston game.
Yeah.
So many power play units have a lefty taking the faceoff, which means if you're going to put Cirelli out there, he's on his weak side. That is a disadvantage.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, like, how have the Lightning been able to navigate around this really, like, noticeable Achilles heel and do as well as they have done killing penalties?
It's a big part of it, honestly, is just buy-in, right? Like, I feel like for 4 games in, I feel like I've seen so many blocked shots, right? Like, I've seen a lot of almost like January level guys grimacing because they're taking a blocked shot off the ankle, off the knee, and they skate slow to the bench. And you're like, oh, God. That is not the kind of the blocked shot you want to see in game 3. But guys have been willing. I mean, God, Cherney's wearing a bubble. I know it's not a blocked shot, but I do think you have to credit the guys in front of the goalies so far that have been willing to block shots, because that is a big, big piece on the penalty kill. And on the same level, even Vasi's numbers this year in the save percentage department aren't where maybe he wants them to be, but he's made some big, big saves on the penalty kill, like massive glove saves denied. Like, that probably should have been a goal against. And I think when you've got the block shots combined with the goaltending that the Lightning have received shorthanded, that's really important, because you can have the world's best group of penalty kill skaters. If you're not getting the saves at the end of the day, it's not going to matter, right? And I think you have one of the best goalies in the NHL in Andrei Vasilevsky. If you can get guys that are willing to buy in and block shots and clear the zone when they have to, because last year even I think one of the issues with the penalty kill was when they had chances to clear the zone, that puck wasn't getting out, right? There were times when that puck would get blocked, or maybe it would only get to the red line, and then you got a group of tired PKers out there for a minute 30 instead of 50, 55 seconds. That's when you're going to run into trouble. So I think it's just making sure you're being smart on the PK, and as long as you can continue to get the saves they're getting, I think they're going to like what they see.
Are you getting ready for Halloween?
Why? God? What do I look? Do I look that bad? Are you gonna
No,
make a mask joke? What's going on here?
Do you give out the candy? Are we costumes at all? Come on.
We just moved into a new neighborhood, so I don't know what to expect.
All
We got booed. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
So somebody dropped off like a basket of nice little treats.
Yes.
Okay, and it was like there was some cups that were like Halloween themed.
That's cool.
And yeah, it's better. I told Molly, she's like, this is really nice. I told her, like, yeah, it's better than getting like TP'd. So we'll take it 100%. Yeah, 100%. So,
you got it.
But I don't know yet for sure if it's a neighborhood where there's a lot of kids yet. So we'll see. I told Molly, worst case scenario, she's gonna have to go out and stock up on a bunch of candy, and it's gonna really be unfortunate if there's not a lot of kids, and then I just have to eat it. Like.
Listen, you lost all that weight. You're going to put it right back on.
Hey, exactly. I've been planning for Halloween.
Yeah. Ben, we appreciate you, buddy. And we will talk to you tonight during the broadcast and the pregame and during the intermission reports.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys. Appreciate
it. Buddy.
Thanks,
there
Ben.
Goes. Ben Pierce. How about that? I removed him from the stage as well.
Yeah. You are quite the multitasker.
Man, I'm controlling
my
all the
friend.
buttons now. That is a scary thing. But, the face-off thing for me, partner, is something that is really going to be monitored, mainly because I think the other stuff is going to figure itself out.
Yeah.
Whether you talk about defending, the top players scoring a little bit more. I mean, there's more of a track record there that's going to happen. I don't know about the face-offs. I mean, some guys got to get back to the average, but Glendening was a big part of what they did.
I feel like we have beat a dead horse here, even though we're 4 games into the season, but there is no answer that is obvious.
Yeah.
To filling the hole vacated by Glendening, simply because he is a very talented faceoff guy who is a righty who specialized in defensive zone draws. And the Lightning right now don't really have anyone like that. So they're either going to need to figure out a way to navigate around it or address it. Now, look, finding a good faceoff guy who happens to be a righty is less challenging than finding a top 4 defenseman, let's say, right? I mean, they are out there. It's just that right now it has hurt the Lightning. And it's not only to the right of the goalie in the defensive zone. I mean, as I said, In the Boston game, Elias Lindholm was winning them on the other side of the ice. And the Lightning just had a bad game overall. We'll see how they do tonight. I bring up the lefty, though, on the power play. Dylan Larkin is their best faceoff guy with the Red Wings, and he's going to take the power play faceoffs, meaning that as a lefty, the Lightning, unless they dress Finley and they put him out there, we're going to see, Cirelli or one of these other guys, Gord, maybe Holmberg, have to take the faceoff on their weak side.
You've got to earn it. Who's going to sit? These are all legitimate questions, but it was pretty obvious that Glendening was the 12th forward on the Lightning last year, right? But he had a role. That was to win faceoffs.
Yeah.
Does Jack Finley deserve a little bit more of an opportunity here to see what he can do in that department to help?
We'll see, because it was an optional skate this morning. We should mention that I swung and missed on who the Lightning were going to call up. They did call up a defenseman, but it was not Declan Carlisle. So they called up a right-handed defenseman, Steven Santini, who has considerable NHL experience. I mean, it's not like they called up a guy who's, new to the NHL. Santini got into 2 or 3 games last year with the Lightning, former draft pick of the Devils. He's been in the NHL. He's Syracuse's captain, too, so congratulations to him.
It's a big deal.
But they basically replaced a righty Crozier with another righty Santini, which tells me Moser is staying on the right side. I mean, tonight probably Santini is scratched, but it's not like they felt that because Moser is a lefty who plays the right side, they were like, okay, if Carlisle is number 8 on the depth chart, which I think he is, understanding that this righty-lefty thing is playing a factor, they could have said, we're going to call up Carlisle and just move, if we have to, move Moser to keep Moser. Like, keep Moser on the right, and then we have the left, right, for Carlisle. So, no, I said that wrong. If they would not be committed to having Moser on the right, then, I guess that would open up a spot for Santini. But I think Moser is staying on the right. So look for Moser and Hedman tonight.
Yeah.
Look for Chernak and McDonough, and you're probably going to see Radish and Lilleberg. That would be my guess. The forwards, unclear, in that I am unclear as to who is going to be on the 4th line. I think the top 3 lines are going to stay the same, though. Because, as Ben mentioned, the middle 6 did a good job.
Yeah.
In Boston and in Washington.
And Gergensen's at skating, right?
Gergensen's is skating, so that's a very good sign, yes.
Yeah.
And the other bit of news that we got yesterday from John Cooper, after you and I had finished the show, because we pre-taped, it does not sound like Crozier. I'm going to go out on a limb here, because Coop said more day-to-day than week-to-week. If you're looking at a high ankle sprain, it is definitely week-to-week. So if he broke his ankle, I mean, I don't know if that was what necessarily happened, but you're not looking at more day-to-day than week-to-week. So hopefully it is more day-to-day, and if so, I think the Lightning and Crozier maybe dodged a little bit of a bullet. And then the other news, of course, that you just mentioned, Gergensen's, who we've not seen on the ice, is on the trip and skating today.
That's great news.
Yeah, with the optional group.
Right. Tonight, enjoy some Reef Rum, smooth, versatile, and now pouring at Benchmark International Arena. Order a Tropic Wave or a Lightning Mule and taste why fans are switching. Reef Rum is a premium craft Florida local rum built on authenticity, quality, and easy drinkability. Ask for Reef Rum by name. Go Bolts, enjoy responsibly, as you should. Let's get to some more questions, partner. I always love these because it puts you on the spot. Dave Mishkin for Foster Heating Board. Yeah, let's go.
Well,
Start
thank
that.
you. I have no control over that. Nor do I really waste.
I don't
a lot
even
of
think
time.
you pay
And I would
attention
even
to that,
say
right?
waste a lot of time worrying about it.
You don't. You have other things going on, right?
No, I have other things going on.
Yes.
I'm very happy though for the nominees who get in, including, of course, our good friend Rick Peckham, who was the selection a few years ago.
It's always a cool honor. You'll be there one day, partner. EB says, daily listen, love your perspective. Question, which D-man should be caught up from Syracuse? Well, we
Asked
thought
and
it was going to be
answered.
somebody else. but
Yeah.
let's
So
go for
I
it.
just realized, I really tried to juggle and I dropped all the balls talking about Moser on the right. So let me rephrase. With Steven Santini being called up as a right-handed defenseman, if Santini is going to enter the lineup and again, I think that he's up for insurance. If he is going to enter the lineup and the Lightning basically slot him for Crozier, Radish would be the extra guy. But the Lightning could move Moser from the right to the left, and they could have 3 righties, Radish, Chernak, and Santini, which they could also do when Crozier is available to play. And then you're probably looking at Lilleberg, who we had a question on yesterday, as the extra D. If you're calling up Carlisle as a lefty, you are basically locking in Moser as a right-handed defense, or a defenseman who shoots left, plays on the right side, because you only have 2 other righties. You have Radish and you have Chernak. That is how I should have answered the question or talked about it the first time. So the fact that Santini is up, if Santini gets in, it is possible Moser moves to the left. But I think this is more about Crozier's a righty, Crozier's unavailable this weekend. Right. Let's bring him another righty.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Stephanie says, how can they improve in that face-off, Dot? That seems to be killing them. No, you're right about that.
Well, look, if you were just getting schooled, you try and go for a tie, and then you rely on your wingers to try and come in and help. That's but it. Even a tie is a tie. It's like a coin toss, right? And sometimes you try and tie up the guy's stick, and it still doesn't work because you're not really going for a win. You're going for basically a push, right? So the best face-off guys in the NHL are the best face-off guys for a reason. They're hard to beat. And the Lightning are seeing some skilled face-off teams. I mean, they did better against Washington, but Washington's not a great face-off team. I mean, they came in under 50%. They did win more than 50% against the Lightning. The Lightning did better than they did against Boston. Detroit is a better face-off team. They are over 50% as a team, and Larkin specifically is excellent. Who are the Lightning going to see when they are shorthanded or in the defensive zone? Like if they're up late in the game, they're going to see Larkin. So it's a lot of it is very like it's almost micro, not macro. We're looking at the macro. We're like kind of need a right-handed face-off guy in the defensive zone. That would help. We're looking at the overall numbers. But many times it comes down to like, who are you seeing a lot? And
can you beat that guy?
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it boils down to. Right. And then as Phil often talks about the 50-50s. So
the other option was, do you give somebody else a shot? That's why we brought up Finley.
Right.
I mean, does it get to that point? And
well, Finley's only played in one of the 4 games.
That's what I mean. Like at some point,
and when he played in that game, they gave him some D-zone faceoffs against the Devils.
Agreed. I agree, partner.
We'll see if he's in tonight.
Tampa Bay says, how do they decide who's in net on a back-to-back when both teams are kind of in the middle of the pack tier?
That is a question for the coaching staff and Franjan. I think at this point they kind of talked to Vasilevsky. This is me guessing a little bit and a little bit kind of what I've heard, not directly. I think maybe they talked to Vasilevsky and give him the option. He's earned that.
Yeah.
So in the back-to-back that we just had, Vasi took the second game. Usually he gets the first game, and the fact that Johansson was on the ice for the optional and Vasi wasn't, I think Vasi's starting tonight. It is a divisional game. Tomorrow isn't, but of course the earlier back-to-back, Boston was the divisional game, and Johansson got the start. So I think it's more about coach's decision. By coach, we're really talking about Franz Jean, the goalie coach, in collaboration with the other coaches and talking to your main guy.
Thaw 345. Why did the Bolts call up Santini? And partner, I think you explained that pretty well.
Yeah, righty for a righty, and Santini has NHL experience.
Yeah. Let's see. This one, Peter says, insurance, he won't dress. If they wanted the call up to dress, it would have been Declan. So getting into that argument of
we'll see.
Where is Santini going to slide
I do
in,
think for tonight, the 6D who have been up are going to be the 6D.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens tonight. If somebody gets nicked up, Santini's in tomorrow. They didn't bring up Santini to like swap him for somebody else tomorrow. Like Santini is here for the weekend rather than trying to like get somebody else in for tomorrow's game.
I'm all for the weekend, partner. Code Rez says, I'm not sure what they see in Gonçalves on that second line. He's been invisible.
Well, I think that's a little harsh, honestly. I don't think that the Lightning did a lot to push play in the first 2 games. I think they did more to push play and be noticeable as a team in games 3 and 4, and Gonçalves was part of that. I mean, he did have assists on the 2 Cirelli goals in the first period against Boston.
Elgin agrees with you. Gonçalves has had 3 assists in 4 games. He had 12 all of last year. Elgin also goes on to say, do I wish we had someone a little more exciting there? Sure, but he hasn't been invisible. I think that's a fair analysis.
So that must have been a response to the other one that was posted. Yeah.
Everybody can give a little more. I think we all understand that.
It is interesting that, I mean, look, I'll just say it. Fans have their favorites.
Yeah.
Fans have their favorites. And sometimes they have their longtime favorites, and sometimes a new player arrives, and that player either strikes a fan one way or the other. And I just think back to opening night, and we had 2 comments from different fans on that show leading into the Ottawa game, the opener, because Douglas was in and Finley wasn't. And one fan was like appalled on Finley's behalf that Finley had been here all through training camp. And like Ben said, he played a lot in the preseason, took all these faceoffs, and then for the opener, he wasn't in. And then later in the same show, we had somebody who was basically pro-Douglas, right? And that's just the beauty of sports, right? I mean, I think all the people who are commenting on the Lightning, who are they like the Lightning, but within the team, they have their certain favorites. And by favorites, I'm not just saying like they have blinders on, like they're seeing what they're seeing, but they react a little differently. We just saw that in the two they were in polar opposite, but you know, one fan was more pro Gonçalves than the other.
Correct.
I think that line's been good the last 2 games, honestly. They faced a very good defensive team on Tuesday. There were not a lot of scoring chances either way. The chances that occurred were mostly off the rush.
Yeah.
And Braden Point talked about that. I think it was after practice yesterday. He said they really worked on trying to limit odd mans against, because that has been a little bit of a problem in the first 4 games. But it wasn't a huge problem. Like, it's not like they gave up 15 odd man rushes against Washington. They gave up some. They didn't give up much other than that. But the same is true for the Capitals.
Steve says, I wish they'd give Moser an extended period of time on the left side. I think Lilleberg could benefit from some time seeing the game from the press box. It's been rough for him and Radish recently, and I think a shakeup is needed. Plus, I like this new fiery Moser. We've talked about
Moser has
being
been,
chippy.
yeah, Moser looked good in preseason, and Moser looked good in the 2 games after he came back from his suspension. Moser can play the left. I mean, John Cooper knows that is an option. But right now, I think, this is me guessing, I think they like having Moser and Hedman as a pair. And Moser can play the right. So that's what we're seeing right now. Moser actually did play the left a little bit, if I'm remembering right, when they started rotating the D after Crozier had to leave the game on Tuesday.
He's playing in a way that is just, maybe we just didn't see it the second half when he came back from his injury, but it is noticeable. Would you agree?
Yeah.
It really is.
He's having a positive impact on the game when he's out there. So, like, the fan yesterday talked about the first goal against Washington. Yeah, Moser was out on the ice. It was McMichael. McMichael beat him down the ice. It looked like Moser got a little flat-footed, caught a little flat-footed when the puck went down the ice, and then McMichael slid it through Moser. So that was what the fan was saying. Moser needed to put his stick down to block the pass. Like, it's not Moser's responsibility to know that Protas had drifted to the other side. I think if we're going to look at culpability there, Moser maybe at the beginning of the play, because that would have been an icing had he been able to beat McMichael down there. It wasn't going to happen. It was more about Vasilevsky got turned around like he was looking over the wrong shoulder, and Hedman, who had more of the play in front of him, didn't read as much where Protas was going. Had Hedman been right on him, Hedman might have blocked the pass or blocked the shot.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it. So, yes, and the fan didn't bring that up today. The fan was just talking about Moser. It's not like every time Moser has been on the ice, like the Lightning haven't ever given up a scoring chance, but he's played a lot. He's played more than any other player in each of the last 2 games for the Lightning, and a lot of good things have happened when he's been on the ice.
I would agree. And Anthony says, first 10 minutes, the team looked like a rocket ship. Big potential. I really like small area plays by the third line. I don't understand 32-year-old Cooch. He had some great defensive plays early in most games, but when he passes, they don't click, and he starts to force everything. I'm assuming he's referencing...
Yeah, the Washington game, and remember yesterday I talked about my interaction with Joe Beninati after the first period, and he was like, Lightning's first line is buzzing. Like, Anthony's right. They were on it. Or did he say the third line? I thought the whole Lightning team actually started well against Washington, but I noticed more the first line.
He said first 10 minutes the team looked like a rocket ship. Big potential. Okay. He said he really liked the small plays by the third line.
And they had a good game, for sure. I thought Point and Kucherov had it going at the beginning of the Washington game, and then when they didn't get rewarded, kind of, sort of, or maybe Washington raised their level. But Anthony is right that Kucherov has made some passes that have been intercepted.
Yep.
So we can say that, he's trying to force, or the other team is just reading where he's going. He had the turnover that led to the Jesper Bratt shorthanded goal. He had a similar type of turnover in the Washington game where Justin Sourdif stole it, but the Lightning got back defensively, and it wasn't much of a chance, honestly. But that was because it was Moser again. Moser and Hedman bailed out Kucherov on that pass. So I think there's some truth to that. Maybe he's a little frustrated that things haven't clicked into place for him. But when you see him going, when Cooch is going like he was in the first period, for much of the first period on Tuesday, like, he is still quite a handful for the other team. So he'd be the first to tell you, like, it hasn't really fallen into place for him. He's gotten some points, but he's -8. And I'm sure that's not sitting well with him. Now, Ben told us, like, he is feasted upon the Red Wings through the years. So maybe he'll kind of have one of the Cooch-type games. And look, he doesn't seem to be one that is completely, like, tied up with stats, but 3 away from 1,000, you're getting close. You want to get it. You want to pass that milestone, right? He knew coming in he was within a stone's throw of it. 6 away, I think.
Yeah.
He's 3 away. And it'd probably be good for him just to get that milestone out of the way and move forward. I don't know if that's weighing on him, but.
Keep pushing. We asked that question about, are you focusing on Syracuse and Tampa Bay yesterday on the show? Desiree said, yes, I'm focused on both. And by the way, huge fans of you both, Dave and Greg. Power lunch every day.
Well, thank you, Desiree. I think Syracuse Scrunch fans are going to be excited with the team this year. They've had some bad luck staying healthy the last couple of years. I feel like the last 2 years at the beginning of the year, they've just been decimated by injuries. I remember last year when Lucas Favali joined us, he's like, yeah, the top line is Dylan Duke, Gabriel Stutz, and I forget who the third guy was, but it was another younger player. He's like, that really probably shouldn't be our first line, but we have so many injuries that they are, and they were doing pretty well. But they definitely have some players, as we saw during the preseason right now, who are in Syracuse.
It's going to benefit them whether it's with the Lightning or not, because you're able to go out there, and if you feel like you're a piece or two away and you have an asset that's you're willing to part ways with to try and win now, we have seen that over and over again, partner, and it is a big deal. And I do think it's something that, we will be mindful of moving forward. But we've got the game tonight. And then busy weekend for us. Game tomorrow, right? I mean, we're going to be all over it. Tonight's game is at 7 o'clock. That means the pregame will be at 6:30. Are you by yourself tonight? I always have to ask.
Yes.
Never sure completely.
Yes.
Somebody may hop on with you.
When the Lightning are on national TV and there's no regional broadcast and we're on the road, Brian will come over, which is what happened in the Washington game. This weekend, though, it's just regular road games. Both games are on the spot.
Yep.
66.
Columbus tomorrow.
So
we'll have a lot to talk about on Monday.
Yeah, Columbus has not gotten off to a good start. Remember last year we talked about how much they scored and gave up a lot. They really haven't scored a lot so far this year, and they've given up a fair amount. So they just got beaten at home yesterday by Colorado, which has gotten off to a good start.
Yep.
The Avs, I mean, I know this is probably a topic for another show. The fact that the Carolina Hurricanes traded Marty Necas, I'm just surprised that it's kind of like the Marner thing in a way. Now, they got Rantanen. Rantanen's terrific, but Rantanen didn't want to stay there. So they basically traded Necas.
What are you going to do, right?
And they didn't get – I like Logan Stankoven, but, I mean, Logan Stankoven doesn't have the skill of a Rantanen or a Necas.
Necas, correct.
And Necas and McKinnon are dazzling together. So Colorado is like, thank you very much. They really like this guy, and he's gotten off to a terrific start. You got him, you got McKinnon, you got Makar. Landeskog is back. The guy we talk about a lot, Brock Nelson, re-signed with them.
Good player.
That's very good player. Yeah, they look like they're a very, very formidable team this year in the West.
Marner, by the way, with Vegas, 6 assists in 5 games.
They've scored a lot. I saw they beat the Bruins 6-5. So look, the two teams that started 3-0 in the Atlantic, Florida's now 3-3, and the Bruins lost to the Lightning, and they just lost to Vegas. I mean, it was a 1-goal game, 6-5.
Montreal, credit to them. I mean, off to a decent start.
Remember I talked about they kind of grabbed a couple of points in 2 straight games where they were looking at 0, but look, that's part of it, right? Snatching victory from the jaws of defeat early in the year, and they're not going to give back those points. Those points are in the bank for them.
You keep them.
You get to keep them. Yep.
Yeah, you keep them. But that's a team, the Canadians, I think a lot of people were, maybe they take that step this year, and well, we'll see what happens. But,
they also have good young players. Lane Hudson is terrific. I actually watched the end of the game, or I saw the highlight of the end of the game. They were losing to Nashville 2-1. And they had the goalie on the bench. It was the final half minute. Nashville comes down the ice, and it was a little bit like the Pasternak play on Hagel, where Pasternak makes a skate save. In this instance, the Nashville player was farther from the net, as was Hudson. Hudson was a little farther up, but the Nashville player is in the middle of the ice. He shoots toward the open net. Hudson blocks the shot, saving the game, stops the puck, wires an outlet up the wing to Cole Caulfield. Caulfield skates into the offensive zone and shoots it in to tie the game. 20 seconds left. I mean, those little plays, right? But they are very, very high on Lane Hudson. Very high.
Well, he's you can tell he's a really good player.
And Demidov, I mean, they added him late last year. He's part of the mix. He scored the tying goal 2 games ago for them late in the third. We'll see if they can keep it going.
Yeah.
But, yes, they've gotten off to a good start. Detroit's gotten off to a good start. Buffalo hasn't, although they laid the hammer on Ottawa.
Well, they scored 8 goals.
After they couldn't score at all.
Yeah.
How about the Rangers? The Rangers, were they the first team, maybe they were the first Rangers team to have 3 straight shutouts at home to start a season?
Wow.
Somebody can look that up for us. I saw a stat. I couldn't remember if it was in Rangers history or like NHL history or something like that.
First team ever.
Ever. Okay. That's crazy. And then they were getting shut out into the third period last night. They tied the game and they lost in overtime to Toronto.
Mike Sullivan, I think, has his hands full a little bit with that team, but we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, did they blow things up too much last year? We'll be able to tell if they did.
Kyle says going to see Syracuse and Charlotte next weekend and watching on What is that? Flow?
Flow, I guess that's the AHL
Gotcha.
streaming.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Good for
That's not an
Flow.
easy trip
No.
for Syracuse. That's got to be a
I would
couple of
think.
games
Yeah,
down there.
right,
That's
right.
Florida's affiliate.
Yeah.
We may see some of the players
Check
who
it out.
were involved. Actually, I should say, I mean, other than the Orlando game, most of the players that played in that 322 penalty minute game for the Panthers are not in Charlotte. Most of them,
Gotcha.
are Panther roster players. But I'll be curious if that game has a lot of penalty minutes as well, because they are the AHL affiliates of the Lightning and Panthers.
Well, partner, good stuff. I'm going to talk to you in a few hours.
Yep.
Getting set for the game tonight, and then I'll talk to you again on Saturday, and then I'll talk to you again on Monday.
We'll be back at it next week.
And we'll be
Start of a
breaking it all down.
homestand for the
Yeah.
Lightning.
We'll have some good guests, too, next week, too. That'll
Yes.
be a lot of fun. All right, great job, as always. Thanks to Steve Ersnick. Thanks to Ben Pierce, who joined us today. I'm Greg Linnelli. You've been listening to Power Lunch on Lightning Radio.